Yeah, so this is something forecasters have had to deal with a lot recently, which is think about, okay, what's the impact of Ukraine on the overall economy? I said at the beginning, and I'll stick with it, I think the biggest impact for us is some additional financial uncertainty. Russia is likely to go into true default somewhere over the next 35 days. They owe, I think, about $750 million in interest payments, and they do not have the dollars to make those bond payments, so that they're likely to go into default. The last time that Russia went into default was 1998, and there were some financial jitters that went around the globe. But in addition to that financial uncertainty, I think the big thing to look at is just basic elements. The inflation. You know, what does the Russian economy produce? I heard it said, I'll repeat it here, Russia is basically a gas station with nuclear weapons. Their economy is small, it's smaller than Texas, and basically all they produce is arms and petroleum products. That's it. So, you know, for Europe, this is a big issue because Europe really thought that it retired from history. They didn't have to spend money on the military, they didn't have to invest in nuclear power, they could, you know, go and do all the climate change policy that would make their left of center parties happy. What they're finding now is that the fact that they're going to be cut off from Russian natural gas means higher inflation. That's going to spill over into the US, and what it means is all those inflation expectations we saw from the Federal Reserve last year are too low. So higher inflation, some additional financial uncertainty. In the back, yes sir. Yeah.
Obviously has an impact on everything. 2 days ago, the Wall Street Journal reported that only 3% of oil comes from Russia, and about 80% of total oil and refined products come from oil. So how is such a small percentage having such a big impact here in the States?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think, okay, we're pretty energy independent. You know, what's the impact? I can answer it in one word, Europe. Europe is going to be looking for additional sources of energy. And so you're going to see increases in US exports to European countries who will increase their bidding price, increase the price they're willing to pay for petroleum products. So that means higher gas prices, and of course they're already elevated because of inflation. And then it means higher costs of materials that use petroleum. And I'll give you one that I am concerned about, resins. We saw the impact on the resin market back when Texas experienced that freak snowstorm, and it affected OSB pricing, it affected furniture pricing and availability. All of those prices went up, and we saw an increase in the price and the lack of availability in resin. So what I think we're going to see, and it's going to be dictated somewhat by national security politics, is an increase in exports of US energy to Europe to make up for the shortfall from Russia. Now, what do we need to do? We need to increase all of those fracking wells that we put on standby and get those permits that are supposedly out there up and operational. That's going to be tough for the Biden administration because they've got one group of people who are very focused on climate change policy, and they've got another group of people who are very focused on defense and international politics. I hope the defense and international politics folks win out. By the way, there's a good mirroring there with the petroleum issue with our own industry. And again, it gets back to lumber. You've got one group of folks, staff people in the Biden administration who only care about environmental policy. So the idea of harvesting more timber to turn into lumber in the US is a bridge too far for that. You've got another group of people who are very focused on housing affordability, and they recognize 90% of single-family homes are wood-framed, and so we've got to increase lumber production, and that fight is going on with the administration. I can probably take one more question and turn it, yeah. Yeah. Yeah, so work from home, in terms of its impact on the housing market, it's definitely increased the demand for single-family homes. We've seen in our consumer preference surveys that we've got an increase in the amount of size of homes that people are looking at. Now, the question is, in the macro data, how big of a trend is work from home? Well, we find that about 30% of US workers are working under a hybrid model. We've been calling it 3-2-2. Go to the office 3 days a week, work at home 2 days a week, and then a 2-day weekend. I think that's likely to persist. The idea of the worker who's always working from home, whether they're in the metro area or sitting on the beach, that's really small. That's 1 to 2% of US workers, and that's probably not going to grow a lot. And I think work from home is going to help sustain additional growth in medium-sized cities and exurban areas. And I think that's going to continue. You also mentioned retirement. The senior housing market is really strong. It's driven by equity. If you're in senior housing, basically building larger homes for retiring baby boomers, that's a great market to be in during a period of rising interest rates. And the reason why, those buyers tend to have higher down payments. They're less interest rate sensitive, so they're not going to be priced out of the market as rates go up. That's going to be first-time buyers that are trying to buy entry-level homes. And the baby boomers are the richest generation in American history. They've got a lot of resources, and they're willing to invest in housing. So I'm pretty bullish on senior housing. One other factor that I think is a COVID effect, I think we're going to have fewer people going into nursing homes because of the performance of nursing homes during the COVID crisis. That means you're going to see a higher home ownership rate for older Americans, and that's going to be another factor that creates the housing deficit for us, because those homes are not going to come to market as fast as they used to. I'll do one quick question and then I'll turn it over to Dietz. Yeah. Yeah, the second home demand is really strong right now. You see it just about everywhere. It will likely taper off a little bit as prices continue to go up, as construction costs continue. But generally speaking, I'm pretty bullish on the second home market. I think the challenges in the housing market are going to be concentrated really in the entry-level space, smaller homes, 1,600 square foot housing, particularly in high regulation, high cost markets. So I'll leave you with one thing, which is, people always ask me, how's home building doing in California, for example? And I said this last night. Well, California and its policies build a lot of homes. The problem is they build them in Colorado, Idaho, Utah, Montana. That gets to that second home market, which is we're going to see additional shifting of demand from markets like California, New York, even DC, to more affordable markets. That's markets in the South. And by the way, it's also markets in places like Indianapolis and Kansas City, where you can actually build housing and then businesses will go to those markets in turn. And with that, I want to thank you very much. It was great to be able to join you.